Welcome back. We're discussing a documentary film that warns about the consequences of the way we're fishing the world's oceans. The writer and director of The End of the Line are both with me. Award-winning journalist Charles Clover wrote the book on which the documentary is based, and film director Rupert Murray made it into a feature-length documentary which premiered at the Sundance Film Festival earlier this year. Now, just before the break, we were talking about the condition of bluefin tuna. Charles, when it comes to actually blaming someone, is it easy to point the finger of blame?
I think it is, yes. There's a complete governmental failure here because the UN and EU and the United States have actually appointed people to manage this fish stock. And in some areas of the world, these appointed managers are managing just fine. But in the case of the Atlantic tunas, there is a dysfunctional organization known as ICCAT, which hasn't done the job. It has not been imposing scientifically based quotas. In fact, people have been catching 4 times the amount of bluefin tuna per annum that they should have been doing if they were to conform with scientific advice. And half of that is illegal, and half of it is just too much quota given by this very lax organization. And there will have to be a reckoning now, because they have allowed this wonderful species, the bluefin tuna, to get into the same position right now as the American bison or passenger pigeon or the blue whale got into, of being in a state where its population may never recover. We may not have the profusion of bluefin tuna that we had in the Atlantic and Mediterranean since the dawn of time ever again, because of what people have done in the last 5 years. And that is semi-criminal. If you're an ecologist.
It's interesting.
So people are going to have to deal with that governmental failure.
It's interesting, actually, yes, and I think it's brought up in the documentary, the fact it's sort of underwater, it's in the sea, it's, the species are treated very differently compared with those on land. I don't know, it's a case of out of sight, out of mind. The fish don't really appear till they end up on the plate for most people. It's interesting, though, you do try to approach that by talking to restaurateurs and so on about the way they approach it, and it's interesting you tackle the fashionable restaurant chain Nobu in the documentary on the issue of the fact that bluefin tuna, which is a threatened species, is on the menu. So let's show our viewers a short excerpt of the film where you basically touch base with Nobu, and you were talking to one of the managing partners, Richie Notar, who you finally connected with after they'd been quite hard to get hold of at Nobu.
A fish that is actively been described as endangered since 1996, and you're serving it in your restaurants.
Not only are we going to describe what it is on the menu, I'm going to put an asterisk next to it, and on the bottom of the menu, I'm going to say, it is an endangered, environmentally endangered species, just so people know. That's the first immediate step that we can do. Then we also...
It's a sort of hard sell, here's some endangered species. Are people going to buy that, do you think?
Well, you're boxing me into a corner. At one point, people are saying you're not being informative. At some point, people have to make decisions on their own. If you look at a pack of cigarettes, it has warning signs saying, this will kill you.
The question people will want to know is why you just don't take it off the menu now.
Now, Charles, it's interesting because at the end of the film, I note you say that through your investigations, you managed, at least as Richie Notar had promised, to put at least an asterisk on bluefin tuna, and says it's a threatened species on the Nobu menu. They still have it on the menu. But Jamie Oliver, the celebrity chef, has stopped referring to it and using it in his books and menus, recipes for it. And I know you got Wagamama, the food chain, also to no longer offer marlin on the menu. So I guess some results coming just from your documentary. But how do you propose dealing with the public that I guess sees eating fish as far more fashionable now? Of course, other meats have been sort of seen as far less healthy than fish. Fish has become fashionable and trendy. How do you avoid some kind, whether it's a backlash, but certainly a greater education for the public that what's on their plate may be causing some major environmental damage?
I think we're already seeing the backlash now, that the public are finally grasping that what they may be doing by eating in a restaurant could be having a vast effect upon the oceans. And we are seeing celebrities who used to eat in Nobu taking their clothes off and posing with sustainable fish in order to protest at what those particular celebrity chefs are doing to the oceans by having these endangered fish on their menus. So I think the backlash has begun, partly as just because of the timing that there's enough news stories and scientific papers out there, and partly on the back of this film.
Let's touch on another aspect. It's local fishermen, I guess, and small sort of village industries as opposed to the global one. And Rupert here, I guess I should just ask you to address a question we got from Facebook from Stuart Holdway, one of our viewers. And Stuart wrote in saying, fishermen who continue to destroy our marine environment, quote, because I need to earn a living, are no better than the bankers that have placed the world in the current credit crisis. In fact, they are worse as they continue to destroy the marine environment, even though it's close to collapse, because no one can see the devastation caused by their actions. I guess, again, because of this kind of view, we should make it clear there's a difference. Actually, before you answer, let's take a look at your film where you look at the Senegalese situation, local fishermen compared to the big industry there.
Today, Adama earns $6 from his fishing. His fuel cost him $4. What is left has to feed his family. Meanwhile, on the same shoreline, money is being made. The governments of many developing countries trade fishing rights for quick cash from developed nations. Taxpayers from the Western world pay for the largest fishing boats on the planet, super trawlers, to fish the distant waters. The locals and their pirogues don't stand a chance.
The issue of creating some kind of sustainable fishing where local fishermen, like that one you featured there from Senegal, doesn't have to face the kind of consequences of the fishing industry being shut down, that there is an alternative. I know you also looked at Newfoundland where you had the cod fishermen there. Suddenly their industry is like being shut down and of course there was a backlash from them. How can it be sustainable, the fishing industry? How can it be made sustainable so that it doesn't do the damage that you've shown in the documentary, but people still can make a livelihood? Make a living?
Well, one of the key things that you can do is you can change the way the rules are set up to manage the oceans and manage the people who harvest the oceans. At the moment, if you go to somewhere like Senegal, there's really not very much management at all. They give licenses to these large industrial fishing boats who come in and fish. In some cases, an unknown quantity of fish. There's a large amount of artisanal fishermen who fish the coast, a very large number of them, and there's not really the management regime in place to understand what the impacts of both of those groups are having on the resource. And really, if you look around the world, you'd have to say that fisheries management, the people who are employed to look after the sea, to look after the fish, to look after the fishermen, have failed. And the idea of open access, the idea that anyone can get in a boat of whatever size and go out and catch fish, is something that we've had around the world for hundreds of years, thousands of years. It's no longer possible.
Okay.
What we have to try and do is we have to try and apportion rights and responsibilities in something called there schemes called share catch schemes, where you give each fisherman a set portion of the catch, and so a group of fishermen have a share the total allowable catch. They as the total number of fish within that catch grows, so does the value of each fisherman's share, and therefore it's within their interest to keep it, to make the fishery sustainable, to keep it sustainable, and that's one way of turning the situation around.
Rupert, there, unfortunately, I have to end the show, but I thank you and Charles very much for joining us and highlighting this very important issue for us.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. And thank you for being with us. On the next show, American forces in Iraq have already started pulling back from cities. How well prepared are Iraqi forces to provide security for their people? From me and the team, we'll see you next time, but we leave you with a final thought about the world's fishing industry.
For generations, men have hunted the world's oceans. For generations, we have eaten fish. What can our generation do to stop us reaching the end of the line?